1:51. So organisers are definitely hoping that today's Seville Marathon will go better than that. But yeah, I think a lot of eyes on Solomon Barreca opening his marathon career here. And there's one of the leading Spanish athletes, Maratona, Soler, actually ran the half marathon here in Seville 3 weeks ago, and she ran the fastest time by a Spanish female in Seville, 2:24:57 last year. So competing here for the third time. There she is, 2:58, Maratona Soler. And we mentioned Qatar Boulaid, formerly of Morocco, transferred allegiance to Spain. So they're the two top Spanish contenders in the women's race, Boulaid and Soler.
There is Solomon Barreca and Maratona. Last year we celebrated 25 years since that victory in Seville, and then Martin Viz, another absolute legend of Spanish distance running. Two of my heroes growing up, and one of the Vigos brothers was on the shop during the course map as well. So much love between the Portuguese and Spanish runners. And another athlete to talk about before is the French athlete. We talked about the half marathon 3 weeks ago. It's always an interesting one. He ran 66 minutes exactly there. And then he was on the screen to the centre right. And he was on 2:06:46 in Valencia back in 2023. But it's going to be interesting to see if he can come back from that quick half marathon 3 weeks ago, or whether that was always part of the plan. There is a former world champion, still only 29, Richard.
I punished him on that yesterday.
In a nice way.
Were you in 19 when you won the World Championship? Because it was 10 years ago that he won that world title. Surprise winner, but he's had a great career over the last 10 years, and as I say, still going strong, running fast times.
Well, he was sick here last year, wasn't he, Richard? As the World Champions are set on their way. So the first of our events here at the Zurich Seville Marathon 2025, the 40th edition of the race, with the elites and the masses around about a minute away from getting themselves on their journey.
There's another of the debutants in today's race, Sergei Kidanu. Best time of 59:49 from the Antrim Coast Half Marathon. One of the many athletes on the start line today.
So now it's anticipation. The nerves, the weights for the 40th edition of the Zurich Seville Marathon. Sold out, 14,000 entries. And we've seen super fast times over the last couple of years, expecting likewise today. And so the gun goes, that's it, the start of the 40th edition of the Zurich Seville Marathon 2025. This is going to be a fast one, Richard.
Yeah, as they set off, we spotted the three pacemakers who are going to lead that first group. They're wearing red and green singlets with Sevilha at the top of their vest, so we should be able to pick those out pretty quickly. But this is the famous start, or the famous avenue, Paseo de la Delicias, which not only features in the marathon, it also features in the half marathon. As we mentioned 3 weeks ago, the half marathon took place with the start finish in exactly the same place. But James, you mentioned it's the 40th edition, and it's only in the last, well, 10 or 12 years that this race has really come to prominence in international terms. It was taken over by Sport Iberica in 2013, or certainly the main part of the organisation taken over from the Seville Town Council, and that's when they started to bring many more of the world's elite athletes here. But we're getting some nice pictures of the masses who come here. More than 50% of the participants today are from outside Spain. 52% is a record this year.
Yeah, that is amazing. As you say, when they took over in 2013, I think it doubled, didn't it, in size? And that's the challenge now, to go from 14,000, I think we were saying over breakfast, the aim is to get it towards 20,000. But obviously the logistics of start line and getting people safely through the course, that's going to be the challenge now, isn't it? Is increasing the numbers, because the fact that the event has sold out again, and there is such an interest, not just in Spain, but around Europe and the world, to come to the likes of Seville. And it definitely is one that would love to.
Olá, amigos, TV Planaltina ao vivo na cobertura da Maratona de Sevilha. Alguns minutos atrás já aconteceu a largada do evento, 14 mil pessoas participando deste grande evento realizado na cidade de Sevilha. E a TV Planaltina fazendo a cobertura aí na Maratona de Sevilha. Se você gostar do vídeo, se inscreva no canal, deixe seu like e ative o sininho para que mais pessoas possam ver o trabalho que a gente está fazendo por aqui.
Achievement within, and just on our walk to the course this morning, I think we were chatting to a runner from Uruguay, I think it was, that's travelled the world for different marathons, and I think that is one thing that people are really enjoying, being a marathon tourist, and I think Seville should definitely, if you haven't been here already, be on your bucket list.
Great views there in the background of the cathedral and La Giralda, the bell tower, and then in the foreground the runners are just passing one of the famous landmarks of the city, La Torre del Oro, Golden Tower.
O grande favorito para a prova é o da Etiópia, Selemon Barega. Selemon Barega é campeão olímpico nos 10 mil metros em Tóquio em 2020. Também foi o segundo colocado nos 5 mil metros no Mundial de 2019. E bronze nos 10 mil metros no Mundial de 2023. Salomão Berega tem um tempo nos 10 mil metros de 26 minutos e 34. E na meia maratona tem um tempo de 57 minutos e 50 segundos. Essa aí é a sua estreia na maratona, né? Sua primeira maratona, a Maratona de Sevilha.
Per kilometre, which would give them around about 14:30 to a 5k split. So they're expecting a quick pace, but it's about being controlled in the early stages.
Yeah, as always at these big city marathons in the days leading up to the race, a lot of talk about the pace that the front group are going to be going at, and Seville was no different. In fact, what happened yesterday was that they moved one of the pacers from the second group up to this first group, so that Solomon Barega did have 3 pacers to give him the best possible chance of running the time that he wants to do. What's interesting is that there are 4 other athletes who've gone with Barega in that front group. So that front group is 8 athletes. The front 3 are obviously the pacemakers, and then 5.
Temos 3 brasileiros na prova. O Paulo de Paula, que tem 2 horas, 9 minutos e 51 segundos. Gustavo Barros, lá da cidade de Aparecida de Goiânia, em 2 horas, 15 minutos e 44 segundos. E o Antônio Marcos, com 2 horas, 17 minutos, 01 segundos. Os 3 brasileiros que largaram na elite da prova.
Race, but we've been hearing very positive things from his coach Haji Agilo, who's also here with his manager Maka Hussein, and they've got really high hopes, full of confidence ahead of today's race.
So those that aren't familiar, the day before a major marathon, there'll be an athletes meeting where the coaches, the agents and the organisers will go through with the athletes, and yesterday was split in two given the size of the elite fields. And that's where the final discussions will happen around the paces that are agreed, but also, as you said, Richard, those discussions around making sure that there's the quality and strength in paces. And so, yeah, one of the pacers was moved up from the second group, and I think it is about safety.
Aí já se destacando o primeiro grupo, temos ali 8 atletas, já tentando abrir vantagem dos demais atletas que largaram na elite. São muitos, viu? São vários atletas aí largando na elite, em torno de mais ou menos 100 países diferentes participando desta competição.
It's a tall order for them. They are half marathon runners with times around that 60-61 minutes, and they're being asked to run 61:15 for the first half today.
Now the challenge with the elite women, they have their own set of paces as well, but the speed that they'll be travelling at around about the 2:20 mark will mean that they'll have a lot of good standard athletes.
No feminino, temos como principal favorita a etíope, da Etiópia, Meseret Dink. Ela tem 2 horas, 22 minutos e 52 segundos. É o tempo dela na maratona. O giro também da Etiópia, 2 horas, 23 minutos e 5 segundos. Tem uma espanhola também, considerada favorita aí. Mestel Soler, 2 horas, 24 minutos e 57 segundos.
Running at is 2 minutes and 54 seconds, or that's the aim pace per kilometre, which will bring us around that 61:15 through halfway, which on 62-minute pace. Sorry, 2 hours and 2 minute pace. So, and that's what we would love to see today. The course record go inside 2 hours and 3 minutes. Grega there, a year ago, was running on the track indoors over 3,000 metres, ran 7:25, and has such range. And when I was going through his profile, I couldn't believe he's only 25, Richard. For me, it seems like he's been around a long time. We were talking about, obviously, he came on the scene and was such a talented junior. Had the world junior record, didn't he, at 12:43. But, you know, he's already seemingly been on the scene a long time. And so only 25, making his marathon debut. So I'm fascinated to see how it translates.
Yeah, you're right, James. He has been around a long time. He ran in the World Junior Championships in Bydgoszcz in 2016. Probably, as you said, came to prominence 2017. In fact, he came onto my radar in 2017. He won the Great Ethiopian Run International 10K as a 18-year-old, I think, in 2017. Sorry, he was a 17-year-old back then. And I guess he's from the same cohort as Jacob Kiplimo, who made headlines last weekend with that sensational world record over the half marathon. They were both in those World Junior Championships in Bydgoszcz 9 years ago, and now they're in their mid-20s. Presumably at the peak of their careers. Well, Kiplimo ran that sensational time, 26:42 over the half marathon last Sunday, and Barega is looking to make his mark the marathon. Here they are at 4 kilometres over the Punte de la Barqueta.
So interesting, you know, obviously he's run 3 half marathons, you know, setting up the Great North Run in 2022 in 60:39. That would be off the back, obviously, of a track season, and then ran that superb day time of that 57:50 in Valencia. So, and that took him to 4th place in 2023, but slightly slower, about a minute slower this year. But I wonder whether that was with marathon preparation in his legs, and it wasn't necessarily about absolutely tearing a half marathon. It was probably in marathon work then. So that's going to be interesting. And there's the 3 paces. Sassa's in that group as well, Richard. So it looks like we've got 5 athletes going with the pace.
Yeah, I think Solomon Barega, you mentioned about 12 months ago, he was running the world indoors. And of course, last summer in Paris, he ran the 10,000 metres for the Ethiopian team, finished 7th in those Paris Olympics. And after the Olympics was when he made a few changes, because up until that point he had really seen himself as a track runner, although he'd run a few times on the roads, being coached by Shibo Hussein, and then he switched his coach within the same management group and started to be coached by Haji Ajilo, who is known as one of Ethiopia's top marathon coaches. And after he came home from the Olympics, he then started to focus.
Recorde da prova, o Diressá Gelati, da Etiópia, ano passado. Diressá Gelati, da Etiópia, fez o tempo de 2 horas, 3 minutos e 27 segundos. Isso ano passado, na prova do ano passado. O recorde feminino da Alemu Megereto, 2 horas, 18 minutos e 52 segundos no ano de 2022.
Time today. These are the leading women as they head over onto the west bank of the city. I actually rode over the bridge yesterday, and I was thinking how flat even the bridges are. It's not unusual to go over a big river bridge with an up and down, but even in Seville, the bridges seem to be as flat as they come.
Is that Mazeret Tenke at the front of that group, the Ethiopian 2:22 lifetime best set in Barcelona last year, and a half marathon also of 69 minutes, but it's going to take a lot faster than that. There's one of our Ecuador athletes on the screen, who is there, I think their national record holder, 2:09, and that's the first of the drink stations for him. And that, again, with the challenge of the number of elites, and you can just see the number of tables, and I think an athlete going back for their drink, that is going to be a challenge. It is a challenge with a large elite field. Obviously, he's making sure they get their drinks. Now, Richard, for those people out there that haven't run a marathon, obviously there's water out there we can see being taken on course, but take us through what people are taking on board at those various, you know, bespoke drink stations.
Yeah, so the elite athletes can put their own personal drinks out every 5 kilometers, and they'll be using carbohydrate drinks certainly for the first 5 or 6 stations up until 25-30k, which will be water with a carbohydrate powder which they've mixed, and then they've handed into the organisers the day before, and then those bottles are put out on those drinks tables every 5 kilometers. In addition to those special drinks tables, the organisers also put out water and isotonic drinks to replace some of the fluids and vitamins that are lost during the race. Those drink stations are also every 5 kilometers, but starting from 7.5 kilometers, which means there are 15 drink stations out on the course pretty much every 2.5 kilometers along the way. We're back now with the leading men. They've gone through 5 kilometers and they're already under world record pace.
Yeah, it is quick, Richard. It is around the 2-hour mark, 14:18. So they've set out with intention, and they wanted around about 14:30 through 5k. So the caution to the wind is being thrown out there, Richard. This is interesting to see early on.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not the best way to run a marathon, to go out so fast and then slow down. But I think there is a fair bit of pressure on these pacemakers. We sensed that yesterday at the meeting when they were named, and you know, they've got this job of trying to get Solomon Barega to the halfway point at 61:15, and it's probably for that reason that they have gone off slightly ahead of the pace that was asked of them. 2:54 per kilometre would get them to halfway at 61:15. Well, they're operating more like 60:45 at the moment, if not a little bit faster. Also in that leading group with Barega is one of his training partners. He as I've mentioned, he's coached by Haji Ajilo, and Haji coaches some of the world's top marathon runners from Ethiopia. We've mentioned Derez.
A organização da prova tem uma grande expectativa aí da participação do atleta da Etiópia, Selemon Barega, porque é a primeira maratona do atleta e ele é um dos atletas muito rápidos na meia maratona. Tem o tempo de 57 segundos, 57 minutos e 50 segundos. É o sexto melhor tempo mundial na meia maratona. E existe aí a expectativa de quebra de recorde deste atleta aí, um dos favoritos para a prova. Selemon Barega, da Etiópia, tem 25 anos. Um atleta campeão olímpico nos 10 mil metros na Olimpíada de Tóquio em 2020.
Obviously knows how to prepare them for the big day. That's got to take away some of the unknown in terms of worry, and it definitely makes sure that they're prepped and ready to go. So the elite women, you can see their first 5 kilometre split, 16:45. So 32 seconds outside what is the course record pace. A little bit more conservative for the women, but we kind of did expect that, Richard, didn't we?
Yes, I think obviously the women's course record here, 2:18, set by Megetu Alamu 3 years ago. That's a tall order for many of these women. One of the women we saw there in the Adidas, in the blue Adidas colours, she's running her debut. And Chinalu Desi, coached by another well-known Ethiopian coach, Gemadu Degafo. She's just running just behind the other former Ethiopian athlete now competing for Bahrain, Dalia Abdul Kadir. So there's number 6, Gorsa Ambalu, training partner of Barega, who's got number 1. Season's best, well, personal best, sorry, of 57:50. He ran that about 15 months ago in Valencia. And as we were saying, he was back in Valencia as part of his preparation for this race, in that world record race where his compatriot Kajelcha took 1 second off the world record, ran 57:31.
2:30 marathon himself in January this year, but I wonder whether he was doing a spot of pacemaking that day. He's a 27:21 10k athlete. And Espanto Chariot is the third of the pacers at the front of this group. The 3 Kenyans that have gone out with intent over the first 5 kilometre split that we were fed through. And you can see the flat roads and beautiful conditions that have greeted the athletes. Bit of shade that they get with the tree-lined streets.
Yeah, when this race started, the course was very, very different. It actually was a 3-lap course in its early years. And one of the things that the organisers have done in the last 10 or 12 years is not only to make it a 1-lap course, but to take in many of the famous sites and monuments of the city. which we'll be seeing later on. At the moment, they're in one of the quieter parts of town, going through the commercial district. They're going to pass by the Torre Sevilla, the Seville Tower, which is right at the centre of the commercial district, and then they'll head out, still on the west bank of the river, down to Barrio de Triana. Well, this is one of the Belgian athletes, Koen Nate, who ran in the Paris Olympics. Got a best time of 2:06.56, and has already actually run in 3 Olympics. He was in Rio and in Tokyo and again in Paris. Had a disappointing run in Paris, was 61st in the Olympics last summer. But Koen trained very hard. He's been out in E10, runs very, very high mileage, and we'll be hoping see if he can go faster than his 2:06.56. I'm sure also he's got an eye on running the European Road Championships in Brussels in April in his home country.
Yeah, a quality athlete, so consistent. Ezekiel Mutai is the pacemaker in this group, wearing 55, the Ugandan. 60.43 lifetime best over half marathon, and he's been enlisted to go through in 62.15 through the half. There's Kiprono Kipkemboi on the screen, a 2:06.45 lifetime best. So big numbers in this second group, Richard, but obviously only one pacemaker, so the pacer is going to have to do a really good job. But there's a big group, and interesting with the speed that lead group have gone off. And back to the lead group. Namrat Kiprot 2 is the one of the Kenyan athletes in that field. He's got a 2:06.29 lifetime best from last year, and that was in Rotterdam, another very fast and flat course. But he's going out at a lot faster pace than that right now.
Yeah, I think we should remember there's only ever been 5 times that runners have gone under 2:05 in Seville. So these 5 athletes who are going with the pacemakers, they are either full of confidence, as I think Barega is, or they are taking quite a big risk, because they're operating at this very, very fast early pace, 2:02 pace. And we saw a moment ago the second and third groups, which are running much closer to that 2:05, 2:06 pace, World Championship qualifying time, 2:06.30. And we've got about 15 athletes in the field who have run around 2:06. So it sort of makes more sense for them to be in those second and third groups. But some of these athletes who are running alongside Barega are really taking quite a big chance going at this early pace, a very fast pace.
The other one in there, Matthew Semperu's another Kenyan that's a very good half marathon runner, 60.27, but just a 2:09 marathon best. But that was out in Thailand just before, or 2024, so I should say, back in January, so a year ago. So I expect it would have been fairly humid out there. So this could be a good opportunity for him today, and he's said put out his stall and gone out with this early pace. So the next split we expect is the 10 kilometres. That'll be interesting to see if they have maintained this very quick early pace.
Yeah, the tall Kenyan athlete in the pink vest is Lamek Kibiwot. His best time 2:06.29 from last year's Rotterdam Marathon. There's a nice split screen. The leading athletes on the left, and then the leading women on the right. And there we can see Anchinalu Desi in the blue vest right in the middle, running her first marathon alongside her Dalia Abdul Qadir. We should also say that Seville is the really opening marathon in the European marathon season. We've already had some fast marathons in Dubai in January, and in the Far East in Osaka, and today in Daegu. But Seville really marks the opening of a really busy month and a few months of marathon races in Europe, with some big races coming up next month in Barcelona, in Rome, and then going into April we'll be looking ahead for the big world marathon majors in in London and Boston, but we've also got Paris and Rotterdam Marathon as well. So,
and Madrid as well. I mean, it's such a busy period, and yeah, that London Marathon, Jacob Kiplimo having smashing the world half marathon best in Barcelona last week. 56 minutes, Richard, almost. It's hard to say. What can he run over the full marathon distance? And obviously, Canis Bekele added to that London Marathon field. And it's Eliud Kipchoge, as well as so many others. But it's all about Zurich Seville Marathon 2025 today. And again, brilliant split screen that show us the relaxed nature of our elite athletes. And the elite women operating around about the 220 to 222 mark, and the elite men are fractions away from the 10-kilometre split. And we'll see whether they have maintained an aggressive second 5 kilometres or whether they have settled down. But given the 3 paces at the front and the 5 strong field behind still, I think it may have just settled down very slightly.
Yeah, 3 Kenyan pacemakers there at the front. Number 53, Dennis Kibet. Number 54, Esfon Chariot. And number 59, Vincent Kimayo. This is one of the debutants from Spain, Ilias FIFA, who has a best time over the half marathon of 62:39. FIFA, well, he might be aiming for the Spanish record, Tariku Navales, set in Valencia just over a year ago, 2:05:48. So, age 35. And we're back now at the front of the race. Mentioned those 5 athletes. Semperu from Kenya, Kibiwot from Kenya, and then 3 Ethiopians, led by the race favourite Solomon Barega, all running behind the 3 pacemakers. So a group of 8. They've already gone through 10k. We'll see if we can give you their split in a minute.
Yeah, we'll wait for confirmation. It's coming up on the screen in front of us at 28:44. So they've maintained a very quick second 5 kilometres, and there you go. Thanks to our graphics team. Look at that, 28:44 on the screen, which means they are a vest thickness, give or take, away from world record pace. It comes up as 2:01 flat pace on the screen in front of me as well. So 2:01 pace, 5 athletes, 3 pacers, and Solomon Barega in there, who we expected to go this pace, but probably maybe 4 athletes that we maybe didn't expect, and we did talk about that yesterday, Richard, would be who would go with this pace, and whether anyone had the ability or the quality or the confidence to go with the agreed pace. And that's when it was set out at 61 minutes through the half, but at the moment they're going towards 60:30 to the halfway mark. So yeah, this is called setting the stall out, isn't it, Richard?
Yeah, I think for many of these athletes, I think with the exception of Barega, this is really taking a big risk, because many of these athletes that we mentioned, Semperu, Kibiwot, you know, their previous best time 2:06, and to be operating 2 or 3 minutes faster than that is, well, seems to be a little bit on the reckless side. But it's, I have to say, good for Barega, because the longer he's got company in this race, the more he can just run behind. Well, at the moment he's running behind the pacers, but if he's got company with him well past the halfway point, then he doesn't need to set the pace and can just try and conserve as much energy for that latter stage, latter quarter of the race.
Yeah, Barrega always reminds me of a very high-quality track runner. That's what I always remember him for, and he might always venture back onto the track. Just because you've gone to the road or the marathon doesn't mean you can't go back to the track, but yeah, he's got a gold, a silver and a bronze in the World 3,000 metres Championships. Have you ever seen those types of races? They are brutal for elbows, for positions, for being spiked. And he was always someone that loved going up and down the gears. So I think you're absolutely right, Richard. Having people around him, it will feel more like a race than it will a time trial.
On the right of the screen, some of the leading women, and that includes Kota Bailid, the athlete now representing Spain in the black vest. She's at the back of that group.
Yeah, she's gone with that pace, and a former winner here back in 2018. Wouldn't she love to go on that top spot of the podium again? We can see the elite runners, they've got their drink, and I can probably make around about 5 or 6 of the elite women that are in this front group, Richard.
And that includes the Paralympic 1500 metre champion, Tigges Gezahein. So she's right at the back of that group.
So Gezahein is really interesting. Her Paralympic category is T13, with her visually impaired slightly, so that will be interesting in terms of drinks and obviously making sure that she has space around her with the masses of runners, as this I think is maybe the chasers. They don't have a pace of these two. We saw them earlier, Richard, didn't we? And they're at the moment on their own, trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's John Mburu from Kenya and Adisu Tesfahun. They've gone through the 10K in 29:19.
Yeah, so around about 30 seconds adrift of that lead group. But then behind them, it's another 30 seconds to that main group that we saw earlier, being led by Ezekiel Mutai.
So those front 8 athletes, they're coming back over the river across the Puente de los Remedios, and they'll take a left turn and then they'll swing back through the start area on the Paseo de la Delicias and then head north on the famous Avenida Cristobal Colon, which will take them up into the north part of the town. But great support for these runners, spectators lining most of the route, and I think there'll be a lot more spectators on the east bank of the river. This is where all the sites are, the city centre, the famous cathedral, and the tourist district of La Macarena.
Yeah, loads of runners out yesterday, and there's going to be thousands of runners on the course today. I'm looking forward to my run later this afternoon along the riverfront. Beautiful location to get a few kilometres and miles in. And again, some great shots by our team out there on the course. It's a beautifully flat course. Conditions are great this morning. And you can see by the early 10-kilometre splits that the elite men have decided to try and take advantage of both of those. And at the moment we are operating way inside course record pace, and we're not that far from world record pace at the moment. So whether that is even half a thought of the likes of Solon Barrega yet, and with his coach Haji, whether they have an estimation or a guesstimation of the shape he's in. I'm sure they do.
Well, Haji was telling me he was really, really confident he could run 2:02, if not faster, and that's being very, very ambitious for an opening marathon. But of course, we know his class coming from the track. I mean, very few athletes who've got a 26:34 10,000 metre PB step up to the marathon, and Barrega, high expectations, but looking very comfortable at the moment. Here they are, going past Golden Tower, La Torre del Oro, right on the riverbank.
Yeah, the military watchtower from the 13th century. Beautiful bit of architecture as they go under one of the ASICS banners, one of the sponsors and supporters of the event.
Great view in the distance there of the Mastranza, the bull ring, ahead of the Torre del Oro, capital of Andalusia, and one of the great cities in Spain, both for Spanish and also international visitors.
And the Hyundai lead car being chased down by the elite athletes with the race clock on board, but I'm pretty sure all of them will have their own watches with their own GPS and splits that will be beeping and bleeping to them through the race. Again, they will cover so many kilometres in training up and around the 200 kilometre mark, and whether it's on roads or forests, whether it's long runs, short runs, and there'll be a mixture of everything. But what they will know is that the feeling of this sustained pace, and these pacemakers as well, they'll be checking in with their own body clocks as well to make sure that they keep this pace controlled and honest for as long as possible. And they have those set contracts and numbers that they know that they need to get to make sure they get a full payday. But did you ever pace, Richard, an elite marathon?
I didn't, no. It never really interested me. I think obviously pacing wasn't as big a deal 30 years ago when I was running marathons compared to how it is today. But yeah, there are, as you say, many athletes who just do it as part of their job, and there are so many opportunities because there are so many big marathons, you know, wanting fast times and relying on pacemakers to help them towards that goal. Here are the leading women, and they've gone through 10k 33:44, so 50 seconds outside the women's course record, 2:18, which is not surprising. We're expecting that they're going to be going for a time around that 2:20, 2:21. There's about 7 athletes in that group. Dalia Abdul Kadir, Meseret Dinke from Ethiopia, Anchinalu Desi, also from Ethiopia, running her debut, and then Tigist Gezahain also running her debut, and the Spanish athlete Kotar Bailid, and also I think the Eritrean athlete Rigby Habdi Selassie.
Yeah, that pace is 2:21 pace, so there's a big group, and it's a probably waving goodbye to the course record. His course record from 2022, 2:18:52. Don't expect that maybe to be challenged today, but there is a lot of women in this league group, and we had a negative split last year, so the second half was quicker 12 months ago. So if we did see that today and they do operate at this pace, then we could see a lot of athletes getting close to that 2:20 mark.
Yep, 6 athletes, and yes, as you say, James, they're going to be very competitive amongst each other. A lot at stake if they can win this race. $15,000, sorry, 15,000 euros for the winner. 15,000, 7,500, and 5,000 are the top 3 cash prizes here in Seville. Also course record bonuses. But as we said, the women look to be aiming more for that 2:20, 2:21 with the assistance of their pacemaker. Nacho Gimenez from Morocco is the male pacemaker at the front of this large group of about 20 athletes, which includes 6 or 7 of the top women.
Yeah, with those male pacemakers, we've seen it in previous marathons that they can go the full distance as well. So there is a bit of luxury and a a bit of additional support there.
I think
Purist myself, I'd like to see them pull out at maybe 35k and let the racing really commence.
Yeah, they said yesterday at the athlete briefing that the two pacemakers for the women's race, one at the front of this group, and also another Moroccan who's in the second women's group, they're both intending to go the full distance to help the women.
But there obviously does become a few discussions later on, and about who's going with which pacer at what point as well, and as I said, how far they do end up pulling athletes away from chase groups as well.
We saw that last year, didn't we?
Absolutely.
With Asmero Gebru. It was a very slender lead that she had going into the final few kilometres of the race, and she did have the assistance of the pacemaker, whereas the second place athlete was just having to look ahead and chase the leader as she was about 100 metres down the road.
So again, some great aerial shots of the beautiful city of Seville. So again, if you're joining us this morning, welcome wherever you are from around the world. If you've been out for your Sunday run already, or you're delaying your Sunday run, then hopefully sit back and enjoy some fantastic racing that we've got coming up this morning. So still three paces at the front. They've gone through there 15 kilometres, 43 minutes and 24 seconds. So Dennis Kibet, Vincent Cameo and Espadon Chariot are the three paces at the front. The Mac 2 is wearing that pink vest. The Kenyan to the right of the screen. Rossa is one of the Ethiopian trio in this lead group. Solomon Barega in the orange shorts. Such a decorated track athlete indoors and out. And three very good half marathons to his name, but this is the first time he's ventured over the full marathon distance. And I'm sure the early stages will feel comfortable, given that he has run 57 minutes for the half marathon. But there is a lot that can happen in the marathon, and obviously making sure that he gets all of his drinks on board, and there's such an unknown, and it's a fascinating double of distance when we've seen it previous, haven't we, Richard, where we've seen the world's very best half marathon runners, and it hasn't always translated. Tedesse's always the one I think about.
Yeah, that's right. There's always that big question mark, and I mean, the same is going to be true of Jacob Kiplimo. Ran that sensational time last weekend in Barcelona when he steps out for his first marathon in London in April. Can they translate that half marathon form and that half marathon speed into becoming world class at the marathon? This is the second group. Adisu Tesfahun and John Mburu. Rather strange that so early on in the race the two of them are in such a small group, but I think this leading, well, we've got about 60 elite athletes, and I think they're spread now quite thinly with this leading group of 8 athletes, and then different groups down the tarmac. 43-18 is their 15k split, still a little bit outside now world record pace, which doesn't surprise me in the least, because the pace that was being asked of the pacemakers was around that 2:02, and now I think they're settling more at that pace, so they've dropped outside Kelvin Kiptum's world record pace.
Interesting there, Barega missing his drink at that stop, a dropped drink early on, and I think he looks a little bit annoyed by that. But and there you can see one of the other athletes offering him his drink. So I hope that doesn't play in. You know, I know it can and it can't sometimes be a factor, but I think one of his training partners
exactly
a similar drink, because that's what you talked about earlier. There's different types of drink makeup, and you know, taking a drink on board that you're not used to. So maybe that's part of the plan, is having a teammate up there with him, that if there is a drinks disaster, that can be rectified.
Well, Mucin Otala, one of the Moroccan athletes, so many national records being targeted today, and this is this very big group. They've got a pacemaker on for 2:06:30, the World Championship qualifying time, and must be more than 20 athletes in this group.
Yeah, this group have gone through 44 minutes and 44 seconds through 15 kilometres. So the group in between, I mentioned those two athletes, are a minute from this group, the lead group, from the chasers behind. So they are two athletes in absolute no man's land at the moment. But whether they can do anything, I'm not sure. So that's Tafer and Muriel. They are literally a minute adrift from this group, and just over a minute from that big group. And that big group, going down the numbers, I count, it's probably around about 20, maybe 18 athletes, Richard, in that third group that are operating at, I think, 2:06, maybe even inside 2:06 pace. So that shift in World Championship qualifying time 12 months ago, the Olympic standard was 2 hours 8 minutes and 40 seconds. Now to go to the World Championships, you have to run 2 hours 6 minutes and 30 seconds. And likewise for the women, dropping from 2 hours 26:30 to 2:23:30. But you also said there's that European Road Running Championship, so that's going to be on the radar, isn't it, for some of the Europeans now? And for others, it's you could run a national record and not go to a World Championship, but there are obviously ways, isn't it, Richard, of World Championship points or your accumulation of points, and obviously being a national champion as well. So it's not just all about qualifying times.
No, I think obviously you get invitations to the World Marathon Majors based on your time, and many of these athletes have come into the race with times of 2:06, 2:07. Some of them run in Seville here in previous years, some of them run in Valencia, which are known in Spain as the fast courses, and they'll be hoping just to improve on those times, then with the hope that that might get them an invitation for one of the marathon majors. There's the two of the leading women. On the right, Tigist Gezahain from Ethiopia, and just ahead of her, Dalia Abdul Kadir, formerly of Ethiopia, now running for Bahrain.
Abdul Kadir's best, 2:24. So we said this lead group are running 2:21 pace. So there's a lot of these athletes that are also going towards the unknown and running faster than they have done previously as well. And again, they're surrounded by club runners, as Miley there at the back of that group. I said earlier, she knows how to win here. Boulaid is a 2:25:03, best from Barcelona. But she's a very experienced athlete, isn't she, Richard? She's kind of hanging at the back of this group, almost just watching the other athletes in front of her.
Yes, I mean, we mentioned that she ran a national record for Morocco when she ran here 7 years ago, so knows the course very well. And now running for Spain, targeting Mayita Mayus' Spanish record, 2:21:27, which was set in Valencia just over a year ago. But there's a big group, 6 or 7 women there together, including the two debutants, Tigist Gezahain and Anchinalu Desi.
So the women's splits come up 15 kilometres. You can see 50:04. So showing 51 seconds outside course record, but they're hanging around the 16:40, 16, and maybe that was around about a 16:30 split, 4 or 5 kilometres. So could well be their quickest split of the race so far. And so if that is the case, then they are still around that 2:21 mark, maybe even a fraction faster.
Yes, 6 athletes. Dalia Abdul Kadir from Bahrain, Tigist Gazahain from Ethiopia, Meseret Dinke from Ethiopia, and Chinalu Desi from Ethiopia in her debut, Zenabu Fikadu from Ethiopia, and Kota Boulaid, the Moroccan. Those 6 athletes have broken clear of the next athlete from Eritrea, Rigby Habdi Selassie, who is about 30 metres down on this group.
So no Brits in the lead groups. There's a few British athletes out there. We were chatting to Ben Connor, the Tokyo Olympic marathon athlete that's been running some good half marathons recently, and him and his partner Lily Partridge actually live in Spain for a lot of the year as well, so familiar with the Spanish road running scene. And Tessa McCormack, I think, is one of the lead British ladies in the field, all looking again for fast times. Ben himself looking to run around about the 2:08 mark, so we'll try and get an update on him towards that halfway split. But the pacemakers at the front are doing a great job, aren't they? They're still pushing the pace. And as we go back to that chase group, the Britain also in the field, Adam Clark, a Manchester Marathon winner as well. So again, some of the Brits looking to run some fast times. 12 months ago, Phil Seserman ran that Olympic qualifying time, as I think did 22 athletes. It was, we were talking about that finish line 12 months ago, wasn't it, Richard? It was just a celebration, wasn't it? It was busy, but the organisers, 41 athletes inside 210, wasn't it?
210,
Yeah.
quite incredible.
Wow.
And the organisers really were making a big noise about that, because it is the highest number for any marathon anywhere in the world, 41 athletes under 210.
So interesting, on the right hand of the screen, those 2 athletes that we talked about having, I think, a minute on that group, and I think they've been closed down rapidly, and now the chase group becomes one. It's going to be interesting to see whether these 2 athletes and...
Well, the pacemaker, it's very sensibly, Barnaber Kipkoech, number 56, who's been leading that group, has gone to the front, and those 2 athletes who are running 30 or 40 metres ahead of that group should now just sort of tuck in and gather themselves again and really take advantage of being led by the pacemaker and 1 or 2 athletes in front of them. This leading group now is down to 7 athletes.
I think we've lost 2, yeah. I think the Kenyan athlete 2 has dropped off.
Yeah. So Lamek Kibiwot, the tall Kenyan, no longer in this group. So we've got Matthew Sempuru from Kenya, Ababao Desalu, Gosa Ambelu, training partner of Solomon Barega, looking very, very good. One thing we haven't mentioned is Barega's new shoe contract with the Chinese company, Li-Ning. It was just announced a few days ago, and so lots of expectation, not only from his coach and management group, but also from his new sponsor, as Barega attempts to do something special here in Seville in his first marathon.
So then we get an update. Ben Connor through 15 kilometres in 46 minutes. Another British athlete, Paula Sorofel, he's gone through 15 kilometres in 44:57. So a couple of 61-minute half marathons to his name, but Sorofel hasn't finished a marathon yet, but he's running a good first 15 kilometres, so we'll keep an eye out on him as the kilometres get ticked off.
It's a nice view of Dalia Abdul Qadir. She's gone through 15k in 50:04 with that group of about 6 athletes. Meseret Dinke from Ethiopia in the blue vest just behind her, and Chinalu Desi running her debut. Trains in a very strong group, including Amina Barisa and Tigist Asafa, who are getting ready for marathon majors in Tokyo and London in March and April.
Yeah, Desi's lifetime best half marathon, 67:30, coming in the Milan half back in 2023. So yeah, she's one we had on our radar. Obviously stepping up distance, that's going to be interesting again to see how she translates a quick half into a marathon. But Yeah, we've lost the tall athlete, number 2, so we're down to 4. There's somehow who looks a little bit like he's grimacing on the back of that group with the arm warmers. And the athlete in front of him also with the arm warmers, Solomon Barega, looks almost as if he's out for a Sunday run. With 57 minutes on the race clock, we're around about 3 minutes away from the halfway split. And then we're going to really start to see what our pacemakers are made of, how far they're going to go, but also this group here. And at the moment we've got 3 relatively unknown athletes. We've one absolute thoroughbred from track and half marathon in Solomon Barega, going towards around about a 60-minute half marathon here at the 40th edition of the Zurich Seville Marathon.
Well, this is the second group, and it's a very, very big group. It includes one of the leading Spanish athletes, Chaki Lagar, just outside the national record. Remember, the national record for Spain is Tariku Navales' time of 2:05:48, set in Valencia just over 12 months ago. Chaki Lagar, he's one of about 25 athletes, a very strong group. Also includes former world champion Germe Gebrselassie, Dereja Adunya from Ethiopia, the Belgian athlete Kern Knight, the Kenyan athlete Kiprono Kipkemboi, and a bunch of other Ethiopian athletes, Lemina Getachew, also in that group.
Yeah, it's very strong, and that for those runners going towards that world qualifying time, it's exactly what they want to see as they go under, or over I should say, the 20-kilometre mat. And that's coming up on my screen as 58:30. So if that is the case, then we've definitely slowed.
Yep, 58:30. Those 7 athletes gone through 20k. So we're now just under the course record. Remember, the course record 2:03:27. So as you say, James, considerably slipped off world record pace.
Yeah, so if we take you back to the first 5 kilometres, 14 minutes and 18 seconds, that 5 kilometres was 15 minutes and 12 seconds. So, as you said, there might be questions asked about that early pace. As you can see, the gap back to 2 in the background. But the next split we will get is the halfway one, and there'll be a little bit of maybe a bit of disappointment that it has dropped off fairly considerably, as there's the big chase group going through exactly 60 minutes. So they're metronomic at 15 minutes, give or take, per kilometre. So they're even making inroads on the group in front, but they're 90 seconds down. So it's 90 seconds different, 60-minute flat. So that is right on that 2:06 mark. And wearing 55, that is Ezekiel Mutai, the Ugandan, who's done a metronomic job at the moment at, well, 15 minutes or just inside that per 5 kilometre split.
Right at the front of that group is the French athlete, Felix Bourg. Got the best time of 2:06:46, and actually ran here in Seville just 3 weeks ago at the half marathon, finished second in a time of 60 minutes dead.
I saw that time, and I would have thought he would have agonised to have broken 60 minutes. Reminds me of the brilliant Callum Hawkins. Himself ran 60 minutes flat, I think, maybe even twice. So just a dip inside 60 minutes. That's always an interesting one when an athlete runs a lifetime best just 3 weeks before a marathon. Is that a good thing, Richard, that they're in peak shape for half marathon, or is it as long as they've kind of done the marathon work around that half marathon?
I think more often than not, it's a confidence boost, isn't it? You know, if you're in great shape coming into marathon, it's interesting. Some marathon runners, I mean, you could take Borrega as an example. He hasn't raced since October, and that's now becoming more the norm, that the world's top marathon runners go away and train and don't do any build-up races before actually running the marathon, whereas others prefer to test themselves, maybe go away and train at altitude and then come off altitude, do a race, and then have the final 3 to 4 week run into the marathon. And athletes choose different approaches, but certainly if you run a PB in that build-up period, it can only be to help your confidence.
So the halfway split, 61.45. So just 5 seconds faster than 12 months ago. But remember, there was a big second half, like Letta. That's at 61.37. So, but there's still a healthy pack here. And Borrega still looks very controlled in the centre of that group. We are down to 2 paces now. One of the paces has dropped off, and whether he knows his hotel's close, because he's still running, Richard. I think normally when a pacer's done, that's it. But it's going to be very hard for him to keep going after having been dropped off the front of that group.
Yeah, I think we're now down to those 2 pacemakers, and the question is how far can they keep going. I mean, there'll be certainly a hope that they'll go to 25k, and I'm sure Borrega will be hoping that at least one of them could go up to 30k. This is the second group going through halfway, 63.15.
That's right, isn't it? On the World Championship qualifying time.
Yeah.
And you can just see the numbers of this group. This is a big group, and there's a whole host of different nations in there. And trying to see whether Palacerofo is in that group as well. He was there at 15 kilometres. The Thames Valley Harrier that he said run some very quick half marathons previously. Mo Armin's there as well, so that's another Brit. I think this could be maybe the third group going through, who probably around about, I think, 30 seconds. So this, I think, is the third group. Tujwale Menges is another Brit in that group as well. He's gone through in 63.44. FIFA's also in that third group. Anna Noeki, another athlete at the back of that group as well. So there's Kai Bertz. So there's 3 made groups at the moment. So this is the front group, and then the group that are right on that World Championship qualifying time through the halfway in 63.15. And then there's a group 30 seconds behind them that will now have that second group in their sights as well. So there's going to be a lot to happen in the second half of the Zurich-Seville Marathon 2025.
Well, if you're just joining us, you are watching the Zurich-Seville Marathon, the 40th edition of the marathon here in Seville, and the favourite in the men's race is right at the front, just behind the 2 pacemakers. Solomon Borrega, Olympic champion from the Tokyo Olympics over 10,000 metres. He stepped up to the full marathon distance today, and he is looking very, very good right at the front of the men's race. These are pictures of the leading women. There's a group of about 5 women who are approaching halfway, and that leading group includes Tigist Gezahein, right on your screen there, who won the 1500 metres at the Paralympics in Tokyo and then repeated that victory in Paris last summer. She is also running her debut. Alongside her, another debutant, Anchinalu Desi, in the blue Adidas vest right alongside her, and just in front of her is Dalia Abdul Qadir, now running for Bahrain in the white vest. Those are the 3 leading female athletes in that group. There's about 5 of them, which also includes the top Spanish athlete, Kotar Bolaid, in the black vest right at the back of that group.
Yeah, Tigist Gezahein Magastu is such a fascinating athlete. as you said, Richard, a two-time Paralympic gold medalist in the T13 category, and I don't think we've had a para-athlete get a top spot at a major city marathon in the able-bodied, so this would be a phenomenal performance and a phenomenal showcase for para-athletes. And she's already got a 62:20 lifetime best over half marathon, so great to see her choosing Seville as her debut marathon. And they're a few minutes away, aren't they, Richard, from the halfway mark as they go through 20 kilometres in just over 67 minutes.
Yeah, they're aiming for around 70 minutes for the halfway, which would bring them home 2:20, which would represent a big step up for quite a few of those athletes. Remember, 2 of them running their debut, and then the other 4 of them have got best times around that 2:24. So those 6 athletes, Dalia Abdul Kadir, Mesdalit Dinki, Tigist Gezahain, Anchanalu Desi and Kota Bolaid, those are the leading 5 women. They've gone through 20 kilometres, 67:12.
Yeah, and that pace is just inside 2:22. So expect a halfway split of around about the 71-minute mark, or maybe just a fraction inside that. So as I said earlier, course record is going to be safe, but whether we can have a negative split for a sub 2:20 second half.
Yeah, so almost a minute and a half outside Megatu Alamu's course record. Set here 3 years ago.
So Perez, I think, is the pacemaker on the front of that group, and as we promised, we're going to keep track of these national records. Mobile there saying 2 minutes inside national record pace, and I'm trying to work out whether that is correct or not, whether that's the split that the athlete ran when Mayouf did break that record. So